All right, welcome everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Corporation of Township of Plissens on March 2nd, 2022. I will start with roll call. Councillor Bellmer.
Here.
Councillor Goyda.
Present.
Councillor Sapoulis.
Present.
And Councillor Bailey.
Present.
All right, now we'll have our moment of reflection. Okay, that concludes our moment of reflection. Do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interests? Should we do that before the confirmation of the agenda, Ms. White Fox?
We could do the confirmation first.
Okay, I just thought first maybe we should do the pecuniary. Okay, confirmation of the agenda resolution, please.
The council approves the March 2nd, 2022 agenda as circulated, and the council approves the addition to the agenda as follows. Item 6.1.5, questions received from council seeking additional information and the corresponding responses provided by staff regarding the March 2nd council agenda items.
Excellent. Can I move it for that, please?
I will.
Goyda, seconded by Councillor Sapoulis. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, Councillor Bellmer,
In favor.
Councillor Sapoulis,
In favor.
Councillor Goyda.
In favor.
Sorry, I went in the wrong order there. I goofed that up.
Okay.
Thank you, Bailey.
In favor.
All right, now disclosure of any pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Anyone today? No. Excellent. All right, next up is the resolution for the consent agenda. Ms. Whitefox.
That the consent agenda items listed for the March 2nd, 2022 council meeting be received for information.
You mover for that, please?
I'll move.
Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Bellmer. All right, any items people want removed? Councillor Bellmer.
No.
Oh, Councillor Goyda.
No.
Okay, Councillor Sapoulis.
Yes, 6.11, the previous council minutes, 6.4, Town of Halton Hills new gravel extraction license application resolutions, 6.15, Environment Registry of Ontario for capital paving permit to take water, and 6.16, Peter Julian endorsement of Bill C-229.
Okay, and Councillor Bailey. Any items?
Nope.
Okay, so we'll receive the remainder of those. All in favor, Councillor Bellmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goyda,
In favor.
Councillor Sapoulis,
In favor.
Councillor Bailey.
In favor.
All right, Councillor Sapoulis, you're up.
Yes, first, the minutes of last meeting under item dealing with the Clare Mulkey secondary plan. We directed staff to forward correspondence to Hardin for review and comment. We now have the review and comment from Hardin. And I would like that the comment be forwarded to the City of Guelph for their comments or response. So I'll read the response that our hydrogeologist said. There are no proposed monitoring wells in Township Plissens with regard to the Clare Mulkey secondary plan. I continue to see this as a potential issue for residents south of Mulkey Road, as the only way to address stormwater in development areas to direct it to natural and engineered infiltration areas. Road south is a particular concern as it will be charged with the stormwater. A detailed review of where infiltration be concentrated compared to existing private wells should be made and monitoring wells installed accordingly.
Okay, I'll take that as a moved motion to forward that on to the City of Guelph. Take a seconder for that and we'll just discuss it, please. Councillor Goyda. Okay, comments, Councillor Bellmer.
Yeah, I support moving this on to our hydrogeologist for, or I'm sorry, passing it on to the city for comment. Thank you.
Councillor Goyda.
Yep, I would agree.
Councillor Bailey.
I agree as well.
All right, so all in favor, Councillor Bellmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goyda,
In favor.
Councillor Sapoulis,
In favor.
and Councillor Bailey.
In favor.
Okay, Councillor Sapoulis,
The next one is the town of Halton Hills new gravel extraction license application resolution, and it was by the Council of Halton Hills. And basically what they're asking of the province to have a moratorium on creation new gravel pits until the amount of gravel required versus the amount of gravel to be mined is known. In other words, we shouldn't be opening up more gravel pits if we know we got enough gravel for the foreseeable future.
Okay, Councilor Spillis, so you want to support that Halton Hills resolution?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so that's a mover. We'll get a seconder. We'll discuss it. Councilor Bailey? Okay, Councilor Bulmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I share the concerns of this. This has been, as long as I've been around this horseshoe, it's come up, the idea that the act currently restricts the potential demand from being considered from an application. I think it's been a problem for a long time. It allows operations to be approved eons in advance, and when you have changes to policy, changes to environmental requirements, those legacy pits are then able to operate under the approvals of the decade or the day when they were approved. And that sometimes creates some potential problems. So I think it's appropriate to look at matching supply and demand instead of banking licensed properties. If we look at the Ministry of Environment, when it comes to water taking permits, does not allow municipalities or anybody to bank water in a water taking permit beyond the demand for which they demonstrate they need. So I think it's only fair to do the same thing with an aggregate license. So thank you for bringing this forward, Councilor Spoulis.
Thank you. Councilor Goyda?
Yes, thank you for bringing it forward, Councillor Lapoulis. It's a very well-written resolution, and I would support it.
Councilor Spillis, any further comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Bailey?
I fully support this as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm supportive of this as well. We had an individual present to TAPMO on this very topic, and that I believe is how Halton Hills came up with a resolution. They received the same presentation. I don't know if it's Milton. There's been a couple other municipalities pass a resolution in support of this as well, which is I think is good news. I agree. If there's a need, then if they can show the need for more aggregate, then we maybe require more pits. But until we see that information, I don't think we need to be handing out licenses in advance of need. So this is great. Thanks, Councillor Spillis. All in favor? Councillor Bulmer?
Favor.
Councillor Goyda?
In favor.
Councillor Spillis?
In favor?
Councillor Bailey?
In favor.
Okay. Next one, Councillor Spillis?
Yes, this is the permit to take water. It's ERO, and the request is a 10-year permit to take water. I would like to suggest that we put together a request that the permit to take water be 5 years, consistent with what we requested in the past, and that we ask a hydrogeologist to put a supporting letter in on our behalf. I don't know what's going to happen in 5 years out and 10 years out. We've got all kinds of issues with climate change concerns. And I really don't think we should be doing 10 years in the future. I think it's too far in the future given circumstances we're in right now.
Okay, there's a mover. Can I get a seconder for that?
I will.
Councillor Goyda? Okay. Councillor Bulmer?
In favor.
Oh, you're in favor, no comments? Okay. Councillor Goyda?
I have no comments. I'm also in favor.
Okay, Councillor Bailey?
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor. I just would want to qualify why we're asking for the 5-year, use it as the same permit they gave Nestle Waters. In the past, when we've asked for just a 5-year limit on a permit to take water, the response from the ministry was that we didn't have any reasoning or documentation to follow it up. So I like the idea of it, this ask being supplemented by some comments from the hydrogeologist, and that we're just asking for the same consideration that it was given to another corporate citizen in the township, that they only received a 5 years, so it should be parity across the board. Those are my comments on that. So that's carried. And your last one, Councillor Schools.
Yes, this is a member of Parliament, Peter Julian. He's put forward a bill that's gone through the first reading of Parliament, and it's basically to make it an offense to public display symbols that promote or incite hatred or violence against identifiable group. I think we all saw what happened in Ottawa, and I think having these sort of symbols just juxtaposed beside a Canadian flag is not right. And I would ask that we put forward a motion that we support this bill and that the resolution be sent to our member of Parliament.
Okay, a seconder for that, please.
I'll second that.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bulmer. Any comments, Councillor Bulmer?
I'm in favor.
Okay, Councillor Goida.
I would agree with Councillor Sepoulis's comments, and I'm in favor.
Councillor Bailey.
I am in favor and support the comments as well. Thank you.
Okay, so that's carried. I think that's your last one, right, Councillor Schools?
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Do
sorry,
we need a
Mr. Mayor?
resolution? Yeah, do we need a resolution to receive those ones this way?
We received them as we went. I just don't know if I got a seconder for that last one.
Oh, sorry.
That's me.
Yeah, it's Councillor Bulmer.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. Next up. All right, so we have a public meeting scheduled for March 23rd, 2022. It's a public information meeting held by electronic participation at 7 p.m. regarding the following. Public information meeting zoning amendment D14/HUT and home industry provisions. Okay. All right, I guess we're on to admin. Let me get my other computer on the right page. And 9.3.1, is that correct?
Yes,
Who-
correct.
Is Ivan here today or?
Yes, we have him here in the gallery and I can just move him over.
As soon as I see your video, Ivan.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, members of council. How are you doing?
Doing well, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good, so this is your report. Do you want to give us a quick summary of it, of any changes or, and
Yep.
be available for questions? Thanks.
Absolutely. So this would be report number 2022-11. It's our third draft of the publicized display bylaw. And just a brief summary, we had our first and second draft last year with some comments from council that needed to be addressed. And the third draft was essentially just some cleanup of the bylaw, just adding some clarifications in the preamble. We revised some definitions such as the nuisance impacts definition, and made some changes to section 7, 9, and 10 to clarify some things. And we made some minor amendments to the preamble, as I mentioned, as well as the application form. So if council has any questions or concerns, I'm more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. Councillor Bulmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ivan. I really appreciate the time that staff took with this. I think it's easy for something like this to be misunderstood as being opposed to people putting up displays, and that's why one of the things I like most about this is it doesn't require anybody to get a permit for a popular display until such time as that display becomes a significant nuisance to the neighbors. So that I know we have a few in the township, a few displays that I've seen on the news that are looking to raise money for charities and they don't bother anybody, but I also am aware that these things can grow to be a problem for neighbors if they're not managed properly. So I think staff has struck a good balance on this. And we'll see how it goes. And after all, it is only in paper. If something doesn't work out, it can be tweaked in the future. So thanks so much for all staff's hard work on this.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Goyda?
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Councillor Balmer. I think that this is a really good balanced approach, and I thank staff for all their hard work on it. I just wanted to ask, as a courtesy, would it be possible to notify those who have held displays in the past years who may now be subject to this application, and specifically the time requirements, so that they aren't caught off guard and without adequate time to obtain a permit, if it would be required? Is that something that we could do?
Yes, Councillor Goyda, if council would support staff to make such a communication, we could definitely have some kind of a method to communicate to any display holders, as well as maybe communicating that on our website and any other advertising medium.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Spoulos?
Yes, I echo the sentiments of previous two councillors, and I agree with Councillor Goyda that we should give a heads up to the people who've had these sort of displays in the past, so they're not caught off guard. And
Councillor Bailey?
and
Oh, sorry.
Good work on this one.
Sorry about that, Councillor Spoulos. My internet cut out, so I thought you were
No.
finished. Okay, Councillor Bailey?
No, no additional comments, but just to Councillor Goyda's point, making sure we're reaching out specifically to the residents that have had it before, not just putting a blanket notice on the website. So thank you.
Okay. Ms. Whitefox, do you have a resolution for us, please?
That report ADM 2022-011 regarding the draft publicized display bylaw be received, and that council directs staff to bring forward the bylaw for approval at the March 23rd, 2022 council meeting. And further, that staff contact the affected residents to alert them of the new bylaw in process.
Excellent. Mover, please. Councillor Spoulos, seconded by Councillor Goyda. All in favor, Councillor Balmer?
Thank you. Yes, I have one question on the providing notice, if I could, to people. I would like to ensure that providing notice lets people know that just because they've received the notice doesn't mean they're required to get a permit unless there's a history of their display causing a problem, or if the township has received complaints regarding their display. So that if someone who's been running a popular display who gets this notice but it's never caused a problem, they realize they don't need to do anything, until essentially the year after they cause a problem for the first time. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yep.
Councillor Balmer, we can make sure that that's really clear in the notice, and then we can even follow up with anyone through a phone call if they need any further clarification as well.
Yeah, super. Thank you so much.
Is
I'm in
it
favor.
is it fair to say that the staff would only be aware of displays that were a nuisance already? I'm not sure that people would notify staff when they were,
Okay. Yeah,
Right.
true.
I don't know. I'm kind of asking staff that, like the displays you're aware of have you've already received some sort of complaint about. Is that a fair statement?
I
I
would,
would say that that's probably fair, yes.
Well, that would address my concern. If the notice is only sent out to people that have already, for displays where the township has already received a complaint, and letting them know they'd be expected to comply with this for the following year, that would make sense. That'd be the gentle application of this as I read the policy. So
Okay.
that works for me.
It's Councillor Goyda, does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm in favor.
Councillor Spoulos,
Yes,
in favor?
yes, I am.
Okay, and Councillor Bailey?
Can I just clarify that we're bringing this back to our next meeting, even though we've made no changes today?
That was the resolution. I don't know if we can adopt it today or not, even though it's third draft.
We don't have it, like, that's not part of the resolution today, but if that's council's direction, we can certainly approve it today.
Well, yeah, if there's nothing procedurally that we need to delay it until the next meeting, then we can adopt it today.
Yep, certainly I can add that to that section of the minutes for approval then today.
So I'll just make sure council's all supportive of that. I see Councillor Bulmer nodding his head. Yeah, Councillor Goida,
Sure, yeah.
Councillor Spillis, and Councillor Bailey.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right, there's Mud. All right, the next one is 9.3.2 municipal elections. Ms. White Fox, is that your report?
Yes, it is. Thank you. So this is a report that's just detailing some key dates of the upcoming municipal election. So they're in a chart form there just for council to make note of in their calendars and that sort of thing. These will also be available on the township's website. Within the body of the report, we've actually included the link to the 2022 election webpage that staff has been working on, and we've had that webpage kind of a soft launch for now, so it's available and it will be added to as we go throughout the year, just with any new information that does become available. So that's there as a great kind of comprehensive resource for the community. And just also in the report, it's noted that we're going to be reaching out to the County Accessibility Committee to take a look at our webpage, make sure that it's easily accessible and meeting all of the AODA standards. So that's something that staff will be working on likely in April of this year. And then just the second part of the report just talks about the bylaw that is required to be passed with respect to the restricted acts, just in the event that there is a lame duck council, that staff are aware of the timelines where that would be impacted, and this bylaw just puts us in a position where those restricted acts could be carried out by the CAO if necessary. So there's two dates there that we're watching. So the first date being nomination day, and then the second date being election day, just as our key dates to watch for. If there's any questions or comments, I'm happy to respond.
Okay, Councillor Bulmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Good report. It certainly brings to the forefront that we are entering silly season for all of us, and it's good to have all these dates in front of us so we can plan our years accordingly if any of us are deciding to run again. So thanks for putting this together, and thanks for looking out for the best interests of the municipality as we enter this time of the year. So thanks.
All right, Councillor Goida.
Thanks. Not really any questions. I just wanted to note that I did take a minute to go and visit that web page on the township website, and staff have done a really great job on it. It has a ton of information. It's really a one-stop shop. It's a great resource. So thanks for putting that together. And other than that, yeah, I have no additional questions.
Councillor Spillis.
Well, thanks, staff, for the information. A heads up that this is timing for our performance review.
At least it's only once every 4 years. Councillor Bailey.
I have no questions. Thanks for the report.
Matthew, have you been around long enough that you were here when the terms were shorter than 4 years?
Yes, they were 3 years. For my first two terms, they were 3 years.
Yeah.
Which
Perfect.
meant you had 1 year to get your legs under you, 1 year to do something, and then 1 year to campaign.
It's incredible. Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. White Fox, resolution, please.
That report ADM 2022-012 entitled 2022 Municipal Election Key Dates and Restricted Acts be received for information. And the council give 3 readings to bylaw 2022-009, being a bylaw to delegate authority to the CAO during the 2022 municipal election period in accordance with Section 275 of the Municipal Act.
Thank you. May I mover for that, please? Councillor Spillis, seconded by Councillor Goida. I saw you start to raise your hand. All in favor, Councillor Bulmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goida,
In favor.
Councillor Spillis,
In favor?
and Councillor Bailey.
In favor.
All right. Next one, 9.3.3, Ms. White Fox, the municipal street renaming policy draft.
Yes, Thank you. So this is the first draft of the municipal street naming policy that's being brought forward as a corporate work plan item for 2022. And so given that this is the first draft, staff are just looking at this point for some feedback from council to be incorporated into the next draft. So if there's any questions or comments, we're happy to answer, and we're happy to also just note all the feedback to be included in the next draft as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Balmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, staff, for putting this together. It is interesting to note this year we're finally getting through some of the items that have been on our agenda for some of them up to almost a decade. Well, not quite a decade, but some of the things have been on for more than a term or two. And as we continue to work through these policies. And I thought it was interesting to note that all the feedback we've received since this policy was made public last week has been supportive of the core principles of the policy. So I think it's important that we acknowledge that there is, real support for the core principles that this policy contains. At the same time, it's a first draft, and as many first drafts go through a process to improve them, and there's amendments to improve the clarity and the usability for staff and the usability for the residents. And so I'm pleased to see that to date, the amendments that have been made do address issues of clarity and usability, but still reflect the core principles of the draft policy. And in that light, I'd like to maybe discuss a few other possible changes or some of those amendments that have been suggested so far. For example, the idea to move to more of a flat fee for reimbursements, and to move to something where a security model, as opposed to what was proposed in the policy, and getting securities up front. Both of these, I think, will reduce the amount of time staff will need to spend administering and managing this process, which will ultimately then reduce the cost to the requester, which I think is a good thing. And in that light, I'd also like to look at making sure that the policy that we end up with is as fair to all the parties concerned as possible. And for example, if the policy as it's written now were to apply to change the name of a road where the name complied with the new criteria, then certainly the policies as they're proposed, I think, would be fair to all involved. However, it's clear that the intent of the policy is to only have this process apply to changing the name of a road that does not comply with the new criteria being proposed. And I'm not sure if it's fair to ask someone who points out a problem to be expected to pay the entire cost of the remedy of that problem. And so I'd like staff and council to consider if there's ways we can continue to improve the fairness of this policy so that it's not considered to be go as far as be considered punitive. One of those things I'm thinking about would be if someone makes an application suggesting a name does not comply with the new criteria and staff concur with that assessment, I'm not sure it's entirely fair to ask the applicant to pay for the cost of the new road signs. That would be just one small change I think that could help. In addition, I'm concerned that the idea that the policy currently assumes that all affected parties would seek to be reimbursed, and that the amount of this reimbursement is really only known 45 days after the process is complete. That leaves a great unknown and a great deal of certainty for someone entering this process. At least before, it certainly creates an uncertainty at a point when they need to commit to the process. And I'd like to see if we can build in something to the process, to the policy, that would allow affected parties to opt out or opt in, whichever is more appropriate, of the reimbursement scheme early on in the process, so that a requester not only has an opportunity to know early on what they're getting themselves into, but they are also given an opportunity to help mitigate those costs. And anybody else who supports the change the name by not opting in can help mitigate the cost for the requester. A lot of these things are important, I think, particularly if we've got a number of residents, a significant number of residents on a particular street who agree with the requester that they want to have the name changed. Another one of particular concern is section 813, which introduces the idea that the choosing of the new name will be left to a vote of the majority of the affected parties. My concern here is that, again, this introduces a very open-ended, potentially long and expensive process that I'm not sure adds a whole lot of value, but certainly adds a lot of expense for the requester. And when I look at the policy, there's already numerous clauses that suggest that the requester will be required or have the opportunity to suggest the new name or maybe multiple new names. And the process includes opportunities for those names to be vetted not only by staff, but by the public process. And I think that should be sufficient, a sufficient process for council then to be able to make a decision on the names that are put before them at the end of that process. And finally, I guess oddly, I am actually somewhat concerned that we are only considering a process for renaming of roads that do not comply with the new naming policies or criteria. This effectively leaves out an opportunity for someone who lives on a township road that currently only has a number, and they might want to rename it to honor some natural feature that road is known for, or a historic thing that road is known for. And it also doesn't give us a policy that one of the condo boards might want to use to change the name of one of their private roads to honor a veteran or a significant person that contributed to the life of that condo development. And so I'd like staff and council to consider whether perhaps we should add 2 additional streams for those those 2 other processes that would enable positive actions, perhaps by residents who want to honor somebody or something. So those are my comments. As promised, I told you I'd keep them to under an hour and 45 minutes. So thank you.
Good job. Thank you, Councillor Balmer. Councillor Goida.
Thanks very much. I would also just like to start off by saying thank you to staff for your work in putting this together for the first draft. In terms of sections 1 through 7, I think these sections are very comprehensive and thorough in their wording. I really have no issues. It's clear and it makes sense. When we get to sections 8 and 9, I share many of the same comments I think that Councillor Balmer has just brought up. Section 8 and 9, which speak to the costs associated with renaming a street being the responsibility of the requester. I can fully appreciate and understand and even support this approach if the requester is asking for a perfectly good name that complies with our road naming policy to be changed. But I'm struggling with that approach when the request is being made to change the name of an existing road that clearly does not comply with the road naming policy. So in such a circumstance where it can be demonstrated that the existing street name is not in compliance with the policy, as outlined in section 9.2.3, then I don't feel that the requester should bear the entire cost of the change. And I think the township could share in the cost, and my thought would be similar to Councillor Balmer's, that the township could cover the cost of the street signs and installation in such a case. But I would be open to staff's suggestion at looking at some cost sharing when that situation applies. in terms of the requester paying the additional cost of $200 per resident and $500 for each legal business, I thank staff for providing some insight as to how that amount is determined, because I wasn't entirely sure what that represented. I do tend to think those amounts are perhaps on the high side, and I'm wondering if we should look at it instead of a full cost recovery of more of a cost contribution. But in any case, I agree with Councillor Balmer. I think there will be situations that arise where there may be several residents on a street who would be supportive of changing a name and may not wish to be reimbursed. And I know that staff have provided some responses to that in the questions that circulated from council. But I would agree, I would prefer to see this as a flat fee as opposed to a maximum amount. I think that would eliminate some staff time and cost. And I also agree that it should be paid as a security, and any remaining funds that aren't requested as reimbursement get returned to the requester. I also made note on section 8.13, similar to Councillor Balmer. Again, I understand and appreciate the intent of having the majority vote on a new name, but logistically, this process appears to potentially present many challenges, and I think we can do without this section altogether, and have staff or council make the final decision, obviously with consideration and suggestions that come out of the public consultation component. The last comment I have, which is maybe a small thing, is in terms of the scope, which is actually part 1. I understand that the intent is to exclude only roads where township does not have jurisdiction, and therefore all other roads would be included in this policy, and that would include private roads and roads within a condominium. But in an effort to make the policy as easy and possible to understand and interpret by the reader, I would love to see either a definition or a clarification as to exactly what that translates to. And those are my comments. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spools.
Yes, I have a question of Councillor Balmer and or Councillor Goyda with respect to the flat fee. What sort of dollar value are you looking at for a flat fee? Something that would cover the majority of the costs, 50% of the costs?
Councillor Goyda. I'll go to her first. She just finished speaking.
I guess I'm kind of indifferent. I just feel that full cost recovery is perhaps, I think that the dollar figure we have established there is almost like a worst case scenario, is the highest cost. So I don't know, I would be supportive of 50%.
Councillor Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I guess I was looking at it from a slightly different perspective than Councillor Goyda. I was thinking of a flat fee in terms of saving staff time and therefore the requesters' costs. Because the way it was initially worded suggested that staff would be reviewing receipts, totaling them up, determining, you know, this suggests making a determination as whether claimed costs were appropriate or not. I just thought that opened up a whole can of worms of time and money, and just suggesting a flat fee. I hadn't thought whether the $200 was the right amount. I know from just using my own example that the $500 per business is simply probably more of wouldn't be a full cost recovery when you look at the cost of business checks and other things. But seeing the numbers that staff provided for residential, the 200 in my mind does look, maybe it should be differentiated between whether you're in a hamlet or in a rural area, because as I understand it, you know, my civic address sign, I'd be responsible for changing it because it has my road name on it. But those in the built up areas, their civic address sign does not have that, so they wouldn't be facing that cost. So perhaps we could be smarter about those costs and differentiate them slightly. And I would agree, it's not my intent that they be full cost recovery, but rather be a contribution towards the cost. And whether that's 50%, 75%, I think that's a good discussion for council, but I don't think that's intended to be full cost recovery either.
Okay, so my next question is of our CAO. if, for example, we agreed as council for a 50% on a 50% recovery basis, how would that funds that township would be absorbing, how would that be distributed back out to the residents? Is that going to be a distribution nightmare? In other words, say we agree that each resident's going to get $100 from the township and $100 from whoever or whomever suggests this name change. Is that going to be an extra burden on the township to look at?
In terms of extra burden, yes, it would be an extra task because that's not something that the municipality is doing right now. Logistically, I haven't had that discussion yet with our director of finance, but it would either, I would assume, and maybe she would want to speak to this, but I would assume that yes, using your example, if it was $100 that we'd be returning to the, whether it's everyone who lives on that street or the ones who have opted in, if we take that model, whether we send them a check or do an electronic transfer or possibly a credit on their taxes or something. I don't know what the process would be, but yeah, it would be an extra step for staff. But given the frequency of this and the numbers of properties involved, it is extra work, but I don't think it would be an ongoing thing all the time, a major undertaking. Perhaps Mrs. Hand, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, so our typical practice with securities is to issue a check upon notification from the relevant department that the item has been addressed. So, and I agree with Mr. Schwendinger. I don't see the frequency of these being that significant, so it wouldn't be a significant issue for finance staff.
Okay, so I would tend to agree with say 50% of the cost as a starting point, and we can discuss that further as something that township would absorb.
Thank you. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. Yeah, a couple of my comments. The first one is in regards to section 8. We've written in that streets that have been renamed within the previous 10 years shall not be renamed. And I'm wondering if we can add some language around unless deemed unsuitable according to the policy. I don't think there should be a limit in there if it doesn't conform. So that was my one suggestion for 7.8. I also had a bit of concern with section 8.13. It's funny, I think we can interpret it a little bit different by just changing a couple words in there. I wondered about all registered property owners on the affected street shall be notified regarding the proposed new name. And the new name for the street shall be selected by a majority vote by council. So if we change just a couple words in there, then it makes it makes the intent, I think, a little different, and maybe where Councillor Balmer and Councillor Goyda were suggesting. And then I'm wondering about actually moving it up in front of 8.12. So therefore, in the process, it just seems to flow a little better that way, because council's decision should come after that. So that was my comments in section 8. And actually, along the lines of Councillor Balmer, I had written in again, kind of two components. One is if it's an owner of a street, I'm talking about a private street. So if it's an owner filling in a form versus someone that just lives on the street. And I had the owner would go through the application form as outlined in 9.2.1. And then if they're not an owner, I was wondering about the opportunity or the option to then provide support, and whether it's in, like a petition type thing or just a few letters of support from other affected property owners. How much support you know, we can discuss. I've seen anywhere from 2/3 to 80%. Or 33%, you know, so there's a huge range of what support would look like. But that was just a suggestion that I had, depending on who's actually putting in the request. One question I had for staff is there a plan, or are we going to be doing some sort of resident guidance document to accompany the policy? Is that in the works?
That would be our intent, yes, once we get this to a more finalized version. Yeah, I think it would be definitely something helpful, because this isn't something that's, I would say, common in practice all over the place. It's not something a lot of people would encounter on a daily basis. So yes, we would work on a guidance document.
Okay, because I had thought if we were doing some sort of guidance document, that perhaps we could put in wording around suggesting including owner support if you're not the owner and you're looking for a change. In terms of the fees, I was along a similar path in regards to cost, where I'll just read what I've written here. I've put, if a renaming application is due to a complaint which has a reasonable rationale for not fitting in the policy and includes a petition of support, then the cost, I feel, should be shared by the municipality in terms of the street signs and the installation. So leaving the other flat fees where they are, but maybe sharing in or having the municipality actually cover the sign and the install. And those are my comments.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bailey.
Could I ask Councillor Bailey a question?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry to interrupt your thing. I just wanted to, she made an interesting point. I want to make sure I understood it. Councillor Bailey, you mentioned something about differentiating on a private road, whether the request comes from the road owner, like the condo association, versus just a single resident on a private road within a condominium or whatever form of ownership. You cut out a little bit there, and I wasn't sure if you were talking about including in the process some proof that they had reached out to the owner prior to applying to the township, or if just that they include with their application information to demonstrate that they had. I couldn't quite understand exactly what you were looking to achieve with that, but it's an interesting point, because we don't want to create necessarily a runaround for those people who live, you know, for the condo associations and things. So could you add a little bit of clarity to that?
I guess my intention was, if you do not own the road, but you would like it changed, I think there should be demonstration that you've reached out to the condo board or whoever, if someone else owns the road. I don't know what that would really look like, but you know, ways to demonstrate you've reached out or encouraged to reach out. That's where the guidance document came in. And maybe if you don't have the owner's permission, you then show you've actually have support from those that live on the road.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Balmer. I see it in two sides. For a public road that we own, if there's a desire to change the name, I don't feel that the people that live on that road should incur any of the cost, because it's our road. They already own it. For me, it's the private roads, because that's private property that they've allowed an easement across. So I'm supportive of the fee for that, because when you're renaming a private road, you are imposing your will on someone else's property. And so you have to maybe incur some of those costs that will affect that landowner as well as other people on the said street. Now, I think the fee schedule should go, say that staff can say, provide council with some supporting documentation that yes, it will cost $200 per resident, $500 per commercial business to change it. The onus on the applicant or applicants we are only requesting them to pay, say the number's 50%, and that's the reimbursement they get. The township then doesn't top up, right? So the most they get back is the 50% of their costs. So the homeowners on that street would end up absorbing that cost themselves versus the taxpayer for the private roads. So the taxpayers are not subsidizing this. Again, for the public roads, I think the municipality should just absorb that cost. I think a few signs and some paperwork is not something that's going to be detrimental. I struggle with the, we're talking about one road that we're not talking about, but that symbol has been in society as a religious symbol. I had similar thoughts with the in the consent agenda for that bill that we supported around symbols. It's a slippery slope when there's a legitimate religion, multiple legitimate religions that use that symbol, and to ban it outright. I didn't speak to it then because I have confidence that if that were to be adopted, that there would be some common sense for religions that do exist, and maybe it's already in there. I don't know, but for us to automatically say that road doesn't comply with the policy, I just think that that could be just a decision we make because that was the most recent use of the symbol, and it's unfortunate. But it is a private road, and that's where I find the difference, is that if it should be changed by somebody else's will, there should be some compensation. It doesn't need to be 100%. I think that's what council has been telling staff. They can come back, and maybe with the supporting documentation, the compensation is quite low. I don't know. So I believe that's what staff's going to have to come back on. I think there should be a component of the policy being in line with county policy. They just adopted the Road Master Action Plan, and in that Road Master Action Plan, if residents come with a petition, it has to have 33% of the residents living on that road to be considered valid. So I'd like to see our policy, if there's any components from the county level that could be incorporated in this around the petitions. I think that's it for me, but that's not an 8.13. I hear council's concerns on that. I think staff heard that. They'll come back, but that's all I have. And Councilor Spools, I saw you had your hand up. So
with respect to that private member of Parliament's bill, it does have an allowance for symbols being used in the religious circumstances. So
that's good.
Is not an issue.
Okay. So those are just my comments. Just staff can come back on. This is the first draft. I think they did an excellent job. Staff, do you have enough clarity on what council said, or are you looking for anything further at this point?
I think I've captured the additional notes that weren't captured in the addition to the agenda. So, and we also have the video recording as well to go back and take a look at. So I think we're in good shape to bring back the next draft based on comments.
Okay. Any further comments from council? I'll go around one more time. We'll just do it in order. Councilor Bulmer?
No, I concur with much of what I've heard. I think we're all in the same. We may not have all the exact same thoughts, but I think we are all respecting the core principles, as I mentioned at the beginning. And I think it's reasonable to have some demonstration of support beyond just the requester that there's a problem. I think that's a reasonable ask. So I'm looking forward to see what staff comes back with. So thank you.
Okay. Councilor Guida?
Yeah, I don't really have anything additional to add at this point. I think staff have a lot of comments between what we've been asking, in our questions prior to council meeting and today, that when we see the next round come through, we may have more discussion, but for now, I think they're on the right track.
Okay. Councilor Spools?
Yes, I have a question to you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't quite follow what you were saying with respect to a private road. Are you saying that whoever the proponent is should be assuming the full cost? Is that what you're saying?
No, I was supportive of council's direction of staff to come back with a reduction of whatever their responsibility would be. But what I was just saying is on a private road, I think there should be some costs incurred by applicant or applicants, whatever council decides that cost is. But a public road, I feel there shouldn't be any costs associated with it because it's already our land and the municipality could deal with.
Okay, and with respect to our road, but if it's a frivolous type of request, I don't know if we got any streets named Blue and if somebody wants a name Green, isn't that something frivolous that we shouldn't be absorbing the cost for that? Like there's got to be a understanding that that's not appropriate.
Well, and I would hope that staff would vet that. You know, they would not support that. And I would maybe look at staff right now that, would that be part of this policy as staff would determine if it has merit or if they just want to name every street James kind of thing?
Yes, we would have a
Okay.
component in there to address that for sure.
That's all I have. Oh, just one last point. I just want to make sure that the policy does address duplicate names that might pose a problem for our first responders. I know there's 2 Maples in the township. I don't know how many of duplications are. If they're not a concern, that's fine. But if there is a concern for our first responders, I think the township has to initiate some changes in that regard, rather than putting it back on the residents.
Yes, for sure. We will make sure we do that. And then also in the situation where a road went through a process and there was a list of suggested names, we would make sure that those names are vetted as well to make sure that it complies with, you know, whatever the review process is to determine if there's duplication or anything, if there's problems with any emergency services, all that type of stuff. So we would then bring that list. So if, you know, I think what I'm hearing from some of the comments at council here is once this would go through a process, we would come back with a list of, say, you know, 4 or 5 names, whatever it might be. We would say all of these comply, they're okay with emergency services and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, we would definitely include that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. Just to touch on that last point, how I'm seeing it in a flow chart is if someone would like to change the name of a road that is already, conforms to the policy. So the name is already fine. It's suitable. Everything's great with it. We just want to go from blue to green. Then there should be one process and one kind of fee structure. If we realize that it doesn't conform and there is an issue with it, then that's what we're kind of getting into the nitty gritty with. So that I just kind of wanted to make that clear that that's how I'm thinking about the process, and maybe staff can have that kind of laid out too in our next version.
Glenn?
Yeah, just wanted to say thank you very much for the input and the feedback here today. That's been very helpful for sure. When we bring this back, what we will do is highlight changes so you don't so you can focus your attention on what's actually changed. And then, if I recall correctly, we'll be going through this with Ms. White Fox. But if I recall correctly, you know, there were a couple of different ideas to deal with specific items. So what we'll do is highlight those as well. That, you know, here's a spot where you have a few choices. You know, do you want to do the 50%, 70% of costs or whatever? So we'll highlight that here's a decision point for you type of thing. So just to help you when you're doing your review when it comes through next time.
Awesome. Good job. Councillor Spills?
Yes, I was asked the CEO, what's the timing of having it brought back?
Not sure we'll have it for the next meeting, but hopefully the one after that. That would be our target. Ms. White Fox, what would you think?
I think, yes, we can definitely aim for the next meeting, but depending on the amount of changes and work that goes into it, it could be the April meeting as well.
Thank you.
Ms. White Fox, can you read the resolution, please?
That report ADM 2022-013 entitled Draft Municipal Street Naming Policy be received for information, and that staff incorporate council's comments into the next draft of the policy to be presented at a future council meeting.
Okay, can I get a mover for that, please? Councillor Spills, seconded by Councillor Goyda. All in favor? Councillor Balmer?
In favor.
Councillor Goyda?
In favor.
Councillor Spills?
In favor?
Councillor Bailey?
In favor.
That's carried. All right. on to our next one, 9.3.4, Mr. CAO.
Yes, thank you. So council had requested that we come forward with a policy regarding some proclamation requests that we had received recently. So what we did was we looked at a number of examples that were recently adopted in municipalities in the area, just so that we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. These are policies that were developed with a lot of input at that time. So we kind of want to benefit from all that work as well. So the policies presented there with our recommendations. I think there's two main points that we're seeking for council's direction on. One is the question of making proclamations or not. That both approaches are taken from the discussions that we've had with others, and experience has shown that when you do make proclamations, it can get complicated as to, well, which places do you do them for, which ones don't you do it for, and is there some consistency in who makes the choice, and is it a personal choice? And so that's why some, to be fair and consistent, they just take the approach of no proclamations. So just wanted to get council's feedback on that. And then if that was outlined in the report. And then the other portion we're looking for your input on is there's a list of specific dates that are incorporated into a policy to reflect when flags are lowered to half-mast, and those are dates that are consistent around the country and around the province, to say that, you know, on this specific date, we're remembering this event or this issue or something along those lines. So that's a fairly standard list, and just wanted to see if council was supportive of that list, if they wanted to add something more to it or take some of those out, whatever. But those are the two key areas we're seeking council direction on, but we're happy to answer any questions the best we can.
Good. Councillor Bulmer.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Good report. I'm comfortable with the suggestion number one, with no proclamations. It's easy and fair, and it doesn't prevent any individual organization from making a proclamation and doing their own marketing and sending out press releases to the news organizations to make them aware that it's such and such week or such and such day. You know, so I think I'm fine with that suggestion. But I do have a question about the flag lowering one, because I'm quite comfortable with you have two lists of possible dates. I'm comfortable with the shorter list. But with I would like to see maybe Remembrance Day added to that shorter list. But the question I would have about adding Remembrance Day to that shorter list is that the policy also says that the flags will also be only lowered or put at half-mast, you know, on a regular work day. And sometimes Remembrance Day is on a weekend. And if we have in the policy that Remembrance Day is on a weekend and staff aren't there, does that create a problem? You know, so how would that work? I don't want people going to drive in especially for that. What are we talking about if we do something around Remembrance Day? What's the issue?
Yeah, the reasoning behind that is in the samples that we looked at, municipalities like ourselves, at certain times of the year, they do not have people working 7 days a week. So if, like, speaking to your example, Councillor Bulmer, is if, you know, Remembrance Day was on a Saturday or Sunday, and the desire was to have it at half-mast, we would have to have somebody come in to do that. So there would be some additional cost at doing that. It's just a cost factor.
Okay, well, I'm quite comfortable. We have the ceremony at the cenotaph, so you know, I'm comfortable with the reduced list as it stands. So thank you.
Okay. Councillor Goyda.
Thank you. Yeah, in terms of the proclamations component, for the reasons that our CAO has outlined in the report, I tend to feel that we should follow the same approach as the county and not make proclamations. You know, to be fair though, just because the township doesn't proclaim certain official days or weeks for certain causes, it doesn't mean that the individual groups aren't able to make their own proclamations and engage with the public regarding, you know, educational components or things as such. In terms of the flag at half-masting, I have no concerns with the policy as it's currently written.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spoulos.
Yes, I agree with the proclamation. Just a question of staff. If the federal government lowers a flag for some specific reason, will we be following suit, or will we be strictly, when I say specific, I'm thinking about the, oh, perhaps they're going to lower the flag for the what's happening in Ukraine. I don't know, but will we be following suit when they do something that significant?
I believe at this point, there is the discretion in the policy to do that for a special circumstance. We could do that, or we could just limit it specifically to the list. That would be something that we would seek council's direction on.
I would like to have a discretion, give you the discretion. Certainly, we had the incident with all the Indigenous children graves, and federal government did have masks, and I think we did so as well. I think it's appropriate that we give staff the discretion to be able to do that.
It just so I understand that then it would be discretion to follow the lead of a federal example, something along those lines.
Correct.
Okay.
Councillor Bowmer, comfortable with that?
Yeah, I didn't think it was, yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's sure.
I'm just going to go around because it's a bit of an addition. Councillor Goyda,
Yes, for sure.
Councillor Bailey.
Yeah. Thank
Just
you.
on
No, just about the flag?
Yeah, just Councillor Spoulos' suggestion about the discretion piece.
Yeah,
And then I'll come
Yeah,
back to you.
I'm fine with that, of course.
All right, anything further, Councillor Spoulos?
No, I'm fine. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. I'll preface it by saying I am in agreement with the proclamation of not providing it, but I am going to say something about it. My perspective with the proclamations is from my position on the Safe Communities Group. Being involved with the Wellington County chapter, we're often being asked to help promote causes where they have, they're supporting things at a national level, they're supporting things provincially. So from my committee perspective, to have a way to help proclaim and help spread the message would be really helpful. However, when you actually look up, what is a proclamation, it's essentially just an announcement, and it recognizes an initiative. And so, this day and age, we have social media, we have our digital sign out there. So it's kind of like we can get a little more modern and just use the tools that we have today. And so that's why I'm saying I'm agreeing that we don't maybe need to adopt a proclamation policy. And I'm also in agreement with the half-mast of flags sticking with the shorter list that's in the policy there.
Excellent. Okay, well, I agree with those comments as well. Oh, Mr. Schwindeyer.
Sure, maybe to speak to Councillor Bailey's comment there, if that's something that a township committee is working on it as part of an ongoing program, like you're referencing the Safe Committees program, similar to, I'd use the example of Fire Prevention Week. That would be something that we could incorporate and that we could do, because that's part of our municipal operations and things. So we do have the flexibility within the policy to try and do something along those lines. So I think we have some flexibility there with that.
Excellent.
I'm really happy to hear that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Whitebox, you have a resolution for that one?
Yes, I do. I believe it captures council's discussion. That report ADM 2022-014 entitled Municipal Flag Flying Proclamation and Awareness Policy be received, and that council adopts the policy as presented, including option 1 noted in the report where proclamations are not issued, and to include the list of half-masting of flags as presented, and that council directs staff to include the discretion to follow the lead of the federal government in terms of lowering the flags during special circumstances.
So can I get a mover for that, please? Councillor Bailey.
I'll second it.
seconded by Counselor Ballmer. All in favor, Counselor Ballmer,
In favor.
Counselor Goida,
In favor.
Counselor Sploos,
In favor.
and Counselor Bailey.
In favor.
All right, on to 9.3.5.
Thank you.
Is that you, Mr. CAO?
No, I was just saying thank you for the discussion on the last one.
Is Hillary joining us for this one, or?
Mr. Mayor, we have our deputy clerk here that can help speak to this report as well.
Sure, Mr. Budden.
Thank you, Council. This report is to provide you with the goals and objectives for the Heritage Committee for 2022. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you. Counselor Ballmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, but I can report as your Heritage Committee member that the committee was pleased to finally be able to put completed beside at least one of these tasks being the Heritage Registry. So there was a lot of celebrating around the committee table when we could change that one piece. So thank you.
Excellent. Counselor Goida.
Yeah, no questions, just, great work to the committee for getting that heritage registry finally complete. I know there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into that, so thank you very much.
Counselor Sploos.
Oh, thanks to the Heritage Committee and Council Ballmer for the good work on the Heritage Committee getting a lot of these things done and continuing to work on some other things that are of interest to the community.
Okay, and Counselor Bailey.
No, I don't have any questions, but good job. Good job to the committee.
All right. Do you have a resolution for that one, Ms. White Fox?
Yes, that report HER 2022-002, providing the proposed updated Heritage Committee goals and objectives for the remainder of the 2022 term be received, and that the updated goals and objectives as presented be endorsed by council.
Okay, a mover for that, please. Counselor Bailey.
Yep.
Seconded by Counselor Ballmer.
Yes,
All in favor, Counselor Ballmer,
in favor.
Counselor Goida,
In favor.
Counselor Sploos,
In favor.
and Counselor Bailey.
In favor.
Excellent. All right. Next one, 9.3.6. Who's presenting this one? Counselor Goida?
I can
Is
present
it?
that as well, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is likewise to the Heritage, but this time we're looking at the Recreation Committee's goals and objectives for 2022. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Counselor Ballmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I probably said this before, but I'm so pleased that this is a committee that I think for a little while had sort of floundered in trying to find its way, and it appears that we're starting to see the benefits of them finding their way, and things are starting to happen, and I think that's a good thing overall. So thank you, Councillor Goida, for you and your committee, and I'll try not to repeat that if next quarter this report comes up. So thank you.
Counselor Goida?
Thanks very much. I have nothing really to add, but thank you.
Counselor Sploos?
Yes, I'd like to thank Councilor Goida and the rest of the committee members for taking this committee that's been languishing for a long time and really stepping up to the mark and really being responsive to the community needs.
Excellent. Counselor Bailey?
Yeah, no, me too. I'm just looking forward to seeing all the action coming out of here. Looks like a busy goals sheet there. So thank you.
Great job. Ms. Whitefox, have a resolution, please.
That report REC-2022-01, providing the proposed updated Recreation Committee goals and objectives for the remainder of the 2022 term be received, and the updated goals and objectives as presented be endorsed by council.
You can move it for that, please. Counselor Sploos, seconded by Counselor Bailey. All in favor, Counselor Ballmer,
In favor.
Counselor Goida,
In favor.
Sploos,
In favor.
and Counselor Bailey.
In favor.
All right, 9.3.7. Is that you again, Mr. Bunn?
It is. I need to keep my microphone on. I keep turning it off and jumping back. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report is looking at giving council a recommendation from the Recreation Committee on parking for the fall fair. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I also recognize that we have Mr. Fowler here too, who has been part of the conversations with the committee and may be able to answer any of the technical questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bulmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps I have a question for Councillor Goida. I noticed that in this discussion of fall fair parking, they're looking at overflow parking with Aberfoyle Antique Market and the municipal complex parking. When I was involved in the farmers market, we also had reached out to the public school to talk about the potential for overflow parking, and they were open to that. We just had to add them to our insurance. Did the discussions around the rec table with the agricultural society include discussions about the agricultural society or the school as an option as well, now that we've got a crosswalk and everything there and lights and things?
It did not, but that is an excellent suggestion that that would be great to include for sure.
Thank you.
Councillor Goida?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Balmer, for bringing that up. I guess I just wanted to reiterate that you know, what's bringing this up is the rec committee is recognizing the importance of the fall fair and its value to the community, and it's coming up because we want it to be proactive in addressing the parking concern early, so that the event can continue to be successful while at the same time protecting, you know, the cherished new soccer field. So this is just coming forward so that we can try and find some solutions to that to allow the event to continue to be successful.
Okay, Councillor Spools?
Oh, good work on being proactive and avoiding having the last minute hustle and trying to make things happen on the fly. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bailey?
Thank you. Just to put it in perspective, maybe Mr. Fowler can answer this. How many parking spaces have we sort of lost in terms of the construction of the soccer field there, or have we?
It's hard to put a number on. I would say probably 50 to 100 cars, and trailers would be a fair number. Again, this area was really never identified as a parking area to begin with, so the type of, whether it be drainage or access to the old hayfield, was never really established. So it was generally, if it was a nice dry weekend, cars could navigate and park in there. If it was a wet weekend, they tended to get stuck. So again, I think a fair number is about 100 cars.
Okay, so that's significant. I think the suggestion of the school's fabulous. We can show off the new crosswalk.
Councillor Goida, was there any discussions about how they're going to accommodate the tractor pull on the Friday night? The parking of personal vehicles, I don't see that as a major issue, but a large component of the fall fair is the Friday night tractor pull, and that's where all of the participants for the tractor pull would pull in and unload their tractors. So if we don't have parking for those tractors, I see the fall fair going to the wayside, because that was a major draw for the community. So was there any discussion around that?
I'm trying to remember, this is quite some time ago that we had this discussion, but I don't believe the intent is to not is to exclude parking from tractors. It's just trying to avoid having any equipment, trailers, tractors, vehicles, anything parked on the soccer field. So we're just trying to work with them to make everything still work, but without that added space of having vehicles parked on that soccer field.
So that's where they would park and unload. So has there been any submissions on where they would now pull in with their tractor trailers and unload their tractors? Mr. Fowler, do you have any suggestions?
Yes, actually. So just this past year, the tractor pull did commence for the fall fair. It was scaled down, but the unloading area was established between the tractor pull track and the existing soccer field. Upon discussion with some of the members, they found that it was adequate to turn a trailer around and unload their equipment. So They didn't feel that there was a complete hindrance, that they weren't able to access the old hayfield. So hopefully moving forward, we can still accommodate that area. That we will not be redeveloping that area per se to the parks master plan. So that'll be another open green space where we will allow parking.
There's a additional little hay field on the south side of Maple, right where the asphalt ends. Is that dry enough or accessible enough to park their trucks after they unload their tractors? Do you know?
In discussions with the Aberfoyle Antique Market, they have used that area as overflow parking. Again, it's all weather dependent. If it's a week full of rain, they find it's unsuitable. If it's a fairly dry week, cars can navigate it.
I was thinking more along the tractor trailers, because they're big and bulky. You need somewhere to put them, do we not, once they're unloaded?
Yeah, my recommendation would not be to try and pull a tractor trailer into that area.
Okay, so when you were speaking with the Agricultural Society, they said they could unload where you mentioned, but where did they go park afterwards?
They didn't divulge that information. I assume they probably just pulled on to up front on the asphalt portion.
Okay, so I just think we need to make sure we can accommodate those larger vehicles. I don't know if the school is the appropriate place, or I'm trying to remember. Does anybody here remember what the front parking lot looks like during the Aberfoyle Fall Fair? Was it normally full? Or could we designate a certain portion of it for tractor trailers? Councillor Goyda, do you remember how it looks?
I remember the front parking lot being fairly full. I don't know if there's enough space along the side of Maple Lane. I don't know. I guess that's a discussion that we'd have to touch base back with the committee about, to see if there's any alternate parking spaces for the tractor trailers. I'm not sure.
If I may, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
I am aware that the suggestion was made at the rec committee that the administration public works yard was available for larger vehicles to temporarily park during the event. It would just be the minor inconvenience of someone traveling 5 minutes to go and get it once the event was over.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think, well, I'd like to see, I don't know what direction we take, but I do have concerns that, you know, if we don't make some arrangement for parking for those large vehicles, we're going to see the end of the tractor pull and possibly the fall fair as a whole. But I'm assuming that I mean, even an empty truck parked on a soccer field would do some major damage to it once it was established. Mike?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, just them trying to turn even a 48-foot trailer around would be quite detrimental to the playing turf.
Okay. All right. So we have a resolution, Ms. White Fox?
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, should we be asking the Recreation Committee to look into this matter on our behalf?
I think that's a great idea. I still believe that we're going to still approve the prohibition of parking, but either the rec committee or staff reach out to the Agricultural Society, and we need to come up with a plan. Because even the Friday night, I don't see at 10 o'clock at night people wanting to walk over to PW to get their tractor trailer to come get their tractor. So I have to think outside the box, or I don't know. I don't know what the answer is going to be.
So I'd like to move a motion to have Recreation Committee meet with the Agricultural Society, work out a suitable plan to facilitate the tractor pull equipment in the evening. Friday.
Yeah, they'd probably have a better idea how many trucks actually show up. They're a close group. So, okay, that's moved, and I'll get a seconder to have that added to the
I'll
resolution.
second that.
Okay, thanks. Any comments on it, Councillor Bulmer?
No, I'm in favor.
Okay, Counselor Goyda.
Yeah, I'm in favor.
Sorry, I should have Ms. White Fox read the resolution. I'm gonna back up there a little bit. Ms. White Fox?
Sure, that council received report REC 2022-002 entitled Report from the Recreation Committee regarding the fall fair parking, and that council endorsed the Recreation Committee's recommendations to address parking, and including the recommendation to contact the Aberfoyle Public School to inquire about additional parking at the school, and that the approved recommendations be forwarded to the Recreation Committee and the Agricultural Society, and that additional conversations occur between the Recreation Committee and the Aberfoyle Agricultural Society to determine where large vehicles can be parked for the tractor pull.
Excellent. And we had a mover for that already or no? I'll get another one. Counselor
We-
Spillis can move it. And who wants to second it?
I did.
Counselor Bulmer. Okay, all in favor? Counselor Bulmer?
In favor.
Counselor Goyda?
In favor.
Counselor Spillis?
In favor?
And Counselor Bailey?
In favor.
All right, next one. All right, 9.3.8. Just you again, Mr. Bunn?
It is.
You're a busy man today.
Thank you, Mayor Sealy. So this final report today is from the Recreation Committee, and this is regarding the Post Lunch Community Newsletter program. The committee is recommending that the program be terminated as it's no longer necessary with the addition of social media with the township. Happy to answer any questions that we may have.
All right, Counselor Bulmer?
Yeah, thank you. I support the recommendation, and perhaps we should send a letter thanking the person who's been taking care of it for the years that it ran for their service.
I agree with that. Counselor Goyda?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to, I guess, communicate that the rec committee will be sad to lose one of its members, Dinah Mackinson, who she's starting a new chapter in a new city, but she has been instrumental in producing that newsletter every month. So we will be sad to see her go, and we're very thankful for her work and contributions to both to the newsletter and to the committee. She's also been quite the advocate in the social media policy, getting that in place. So it seems fitting that as she moves on to the next chapter, that our communications also move on to their next chapter. So that's where this is stemming from, and just an update on that.
Okay, Counselor Spillis?
Thank you. I agree with Council Bulmer to send a letter of commendation, and I also suggest we put something personal in the letter, such as wish you well in new endeavors, something to that effect.
Okay, Counselor Bailey?
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know about the events calendar that the County of Wellington had online. So hopefully adding the link to our township website can start to get more of our residents kind of going there and seeing what events are not only happening locally, but within the county and vice versa. So that was kind of news to me that was on there, and I've now subscribed.
Excellent. All right, we have a resolution for that one, Ms. White Fox?
That report REC 2022-03 regarding the Post Lunch Community Newsletter Program be received, and the council approve option 1 as recommended by the Recreation Committee, and direct staff to send a letter to the author of the newsletter thanking her for contributions to the township, and that council repeal Township Policy 2017-006 Community Newsletter Policy.
Excellent. Can I get a mover, please? Counselor Goyda, seconded by Counselor Bailey. All in favor? Counselor Bulmer?
In favor.
Counselor Goyda?
In favor.
Counselor Spillis?
In favor?
And Counselor Bailey.
In favor.
All right. And now on to 9.6.1. I believe that's Mr. Fowler.
Yes, thank you. So the purpose of this report is for council's consideration to implement a four-way stop at Maltby and Watson, and also the consideration to implement a three-way stop at Hume and Watson. Behind that is the intentions with our neighboring city to the north, City of Guelph, with their plans on improving Victoria and Watson, or sorry, Victoria and Maltby with a four-way stop, and also the implementation of lights at Gordon and Maltby. I'm happy to take any questions from council.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Bulmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think there's so many good things to say about this. One, I'm so pleased that the city is moving ahead with a set of lights at Gordon and Maltby. There's been so many tragic accidents there. Many have included loss of life and life-altering injuries. So it's due. I'm also pleased to see that staff is moving ahead, somewhat proactively. Well, yeah, I'd say proactively on putting these stop signs up on Watson to sort of align with the timing of the city's changes. I think that's a good thing, so that both are done in a similar amount of time, so the patterns of traffic, it's all affected at once. That's a good thing. It's also a good thing because this intersection at Watson and Maltby has been a problem for a long time, and it was on the township's road tour, and council spent a fair bit of time at that intersection, discussing the challenges there, and a lot of work has been done over the years to improve it. But even just recently, there was another close call there, and I'm glad to see the changes proposed for Hume and Watson. There's been more than once where residents on Watson have been driving along and had someone just shoot out from Hume Road without stopping, and a lot of near misses there as well. So I'm glad that you're proposing to move ahead once you become aware that it's going to be recommended by our own roads master plan or road study. Once we're aware, I think it's hard to not be aware, and if we're aware that it's going to be a recommended change, best to time it with the changes the city are doing, and maybe if it can help prevent more accidents, we're even further ahead. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Goda?
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I'm really happy to see this recommendation come forward. The always stop at Maltby and Watson, I think that this is just something that needs to happen. I've witnessed some near misses at that intersection myself, and I think that the four-way stop, it might even just save some lives. I think that timing it with the city of Guelph, that makes a lot of sense. The three-way stop at Hume and Watson, I think, is another fantastic idea from our Director of Public Works to act as a speed deterrent. I think anything that helps in that regard will be welcomed by those that live along that stretch, and 100% in favor of both of these changes. I just wanted to ask the Director of Public Works, of Roads and Public Works, if when the change comes, will there be some temporary signage that is alerting the people who would travel that road often that there's changes, and to make them aware of this new pattern that they're going to have to get used to? Is there going to be some kind of signage or something to inform those people?
Yes, so between the additional signage, which will be stop ahead signs, along with it's basically, we call it a button, and it says new. It will be placed on top of the sign for a period of time until drivers get used to the fact that a three-way or four-way stop is approaching. Also, information will be provided through our website, and also a bulletin indicating the intended changes the township plans to make.
And do you have any indication from the city when they're going to make, what is the timing looking like for this?
A rough estimate the city provided was summertime, so late June into July. Again, that is their estimated timeline. Again, the township really doesn't have to hinge on their timelines. Eventually, by the end of this year, it'll all be in conjunction with the city and fluid.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Swills?
Just like to echo the sentiments of previous councillors, to thank staff for taking this on and getting this done. And timing is really great. And as Councillor Goda said, I'm sure it'll save lives. Thank you again, staff.
Excellent. Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, thank you. This is pretty exciting to have this happening. I just had a question. If I'm not mistaken, at Maltby and Watson, I think there's a flashing stop sign driving east. Will the other stop signs on Watson be flashing as well?
Yes, so the intention is the four-way stop at Watson and Mulvey will have the solar flashing red lights on top of the stop signs. That wasn't proposed for human Watson.
No, that's great, because I think sight lines are great, but it would be nice to see that off in the distance, give people time to change their, like Councilor Gordon said, their behavior of, you know, driving patterns. So thank you. It's great.
Just a question for you, Mr. Fowler. I realize there's two different, or at least two different sizes of stop signs, and I've seen that you've implemented the very largest one in the past. What drives that decision? Is it just mostly your discretion, or is it something maybe council should adopt, is to say to use the largest stop sign available on the 4x4 post? I know it might sound weird, but a red sign can get lost in the country quite easily. I've been down Leamington Way and just a long straight road, and all of a sudden there's a little tiny stop sign. So is there something that drives putting a bigger sign in, other than just maybe collision history or your decision?
It's a combination of both. We do have oversized signs at certain intersections where there are sightline challenges, much to the township's efforts. These intersections still become challenging due to close property lines and things like that. So again, the intent will be oversized stop signs on Watson and Mulvey, along with flashing red lights. Again, it requires a larger 6x6 post, more reinforcement, because the size of these signs are almost like sails in the wind. So we really have to reinforce them. Again, it's not a common practice, but in challenging areas, I'd like to use them.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear they're going in there at least. So Hume would be the regular size stop signs?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right, well, that's all great news. Councilor Spills, did you start to raise your hand? I'm not sure if I saw that or.
No, I didn't, no.
Oh, okay, all right. All right, we have a resolution, Ms. White Fox.
That report PW-2022-001 entitled Proposed Always Stop Signs, Watson Road at Maltby Road and Watson Road at Hume Road be received, and that council give 3 readings to bylaw 2022-010, being a bylaw to provide for the erection of stop signs at intersections.
Excellent. You're gonna move for that, please. Councilor Bailey, seconded by Councilor
I'll second.
Balmer. All in favor? Councilor Balmer,
In favor.
Councilor Goyda,
In favor.
Councilor Spills,
In favor?
and Councilor Bailey.
In favor.
Excellent. Great. Then we're on to correspondence. The Mini Lake Capital Project status update. I don't believe anybody's here to speak to that. Staff have any knowledge on this report that we may need to hear? No. Let's get Ms. White Fox to read the resolution.
The council receives correspondence item 10.1 regarding the Mini Lakes Capital Project status update for January 2022 for information.
Excellent. Can I get a mover for that? Councilor Spills, seconded by Councilor Balmer. Any comments, Councilor Balmer?
No, in favor.
Okay, Councilor Goyda.
In favor.
Okay, Councilor Spills
In favor?
and Councilor Bailey.
In favor.
All right, on to council reports. Anything from council? No? Okay, I don't really have anything. Do we need a resolution for that if we didn't say anything, Ms. White Fox?
No, we don't.
It's a bit of a joke. Bylaws, Ms. White Fox.
That the following bylaws be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2022-009 being a bylaw to delegate authority to the CAO during the 2022 municipal election period. Bylaw 2022-010 being a bylaw to provide for the erection of stop signs at intersections. And bylaw 2022-012 being a bylaw to prohibit and regulate publicized displays that occur on private property in the township of Puss Lynch and prohibit the same that create nuisance impacts.
Excellent. Can I get a mover for that, please? Councilor Spoulis, seconded by Councilor Bailey. All in favor? Councilor Balmer,
In favor.
Councilor Goyda,
In favor.
Councilor Spoulis,
In favor?
and Councilor Bailey.
In favor.
Excellent. I believe we are going into closed. Ms. White Fox, you have a resolution?
The council shall go into closed session under section 239 of the Municipal Act for the purpose of adoption and receipt of the previous closed minutes for December 15th, 2021 and February 9th, 2022, and the confidential verbal report from Courtney Hoyt Fox, municipal clerk, regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And this is regarding the 2022 Volunteer of the Year nominations.
Okay, can I get a mover for that, please? Councillor Spillis, second by Councillor Goida. All in favor, Councillor Balmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goida,
In favor.
Councillor Spillis,
In favor.
and Councillor Bailey.
In favor.
All right. Excellent. Okay, Ms. White Fox, you have some resolutions coming out of closed?
Yes, that council moves into open session at 11:47 a.m.
Are you gonna move it for that, please? Councillor Spillis, seconded by Councillor Goida. All in favor, Councillor Balmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goida,
In favor.
Councillor Spillis,
In favor.
and Councillor Bailey.
In favor.
Okay, you have another one, Ms. White Fox?
The council receives the adoption and receipt of the previous closed minutes for December 15th, 2021 and February 9th, 2022, and also receives the confidential verbal report from Courtney Hoyt Fox, municipal clerk, regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, for the 2022 Volunteer of the Year nominations, and that staff proceed as directed.
All right, are you move it for that, please?
Move.
Councillor Balmer, seconded by Councillor Spillis. All in favor, Councillor Balmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goida,
In favor.
Councillor Spillis,
In favor.
and Councillor Bailey.
In favor.
All right. Now I believe we're on to business arising from the closed session. Anything? Any notice of motion today? Seeing none. New business, verbal update on the transport truck traffic on Watson Road. Who would that be from? Why is it not open?
Is that from
Yes.
Mr. Fowler?
I'm not sure. Do you have a resolution, Ms. White Fox? Who's going to do that one?
I have a question. If Mr. Fowler is not in attendance.
I believe Mr. Fowler's left the meeting just because of close, so, yep.
He's coming back.
I don't, we can certainly send him an email, or Glenn, how would you like to go ahead with this one?
Yes, I'll, how about we take a quick break now? Would that be possible? And then I'll see if we can get him back.
Okay. Well, all right, welcome back. I guess we'll do a quick roll call. Councillor Balmer,
Here.
Councillor Goida,
Present.
Councillor Spillis,
Present.
and Councillor Bailey.
Yeah.
All right, we're on new business. We have a verbal update from Mr. Fowler regarding transport truck traffic on Watson Road.
So the update is that the township is having a increased, we'll say, trouble with large 53-foot trucks using Watson Road as a bypass route to the east end of the Guelph Industrial Park. We've noticed, I've received numerous complaints both from residents and members of the community that they're not allowed to be on there. They are on there. We do have it posted as no truck. The OPP has been notified. Again, enforcement is not guaranteed on any certain date. It's basically whenever they're available, they will try to do their best. We're just having trouble, especially on in winter storms. These trucks are not navigating Corwin Hill with success. They're becoming stuck halfway up the hill. And now it's starting to impede our plow operations, where I have a tandem plow that comes up behind it, and then it becomes stuck, and then it becomes a nightmare. So just a verbal update to say that we will hopefully, with the implementation of the stop signs, maybe a deterrent, but until we can get better enforcement on this hill, it will continue to be a problem.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fowler. The green and gold MTO officers, Can they issue tickets for a commercial vehicle being on a no heavy truck route? You know?
My understanding is that they can. They tend to do more enforcement of vehicle safety than they do the Highway Traffic Act.
Yeah. Is there any value in asking them to do some enforcement of that as well, since maybe the OPP isn't able to do as much as we require?
It's worth a call.
Councilor Bowman, any questions, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Mr. Fowler, for making council aware of this. Yeah, I was made aware, it was the Thursday night of the bad snowstorm, that there was a truck stuck on Watson Hill, a truck that shouldn't have been there, and it was apparently servicing the Cargill plant up in Guelph. It's certainly not the first time. There's numerous residents on Watson Road who have either followed trucks out of the Cargill plant down Watson Road through the no truck section, or to follow them up Watson Road until they turn into the cargo plant. So it's been a long understood problem. And my concern about what happened during that snowstorm is that really created a significant safety problem and meant that our staff had to spend a lot of extra time out on a dangerous night doing something that they never should have had to deal with. You know, accidents are accidents. This was not an accident. And I'd like to provide Cargill an opportunity to compensate the township for the additional staff time that was used up to deal with that situation. To make it worse, not only what happened on Thursday night, the following Monday night, 2 trucks similarly marked were seen, one southbound, one northbound, passing each other just on the north side of the hill. And so if the southbound truck had been just a moment or two earlier, the 2 of them would have met on one of the 2 curves, and there's no guarantee that they'd be able to make it past each other. So we're just inching towards a problem. And I certainly appreciate that the new stop signs might help, but I'd be interested in knowing if there's any other possible enforcement actions that could be taken. We talked about enforcement during the extension of the no heavy trucks down Watson south of 34. And we talked about as part of that I'd heard from residents then that they were hoping that this would come with increased enforcement for the entire section. So I just wondered if there's any other opportunities beyond the OPP or MTO for it to have enforcement done on these. Is there any electronic monitoring that can be done? If we know the driver, we know the truck, how do we deal with this? Because something bad is going to happen on that hill. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Goda.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this to the attention. I was not aware that those trucks were going up and down Corwin Hill. I see them go past sort of my end of the street, but I always assumed they were turning on Maltby. I can't imagine those trucks trying to go up and down that hill. If as Councillor Balmer is saying, if it's frequent offenders coming from Cargo, is there any mechanism that we could address that directly with them? Have we done that in the past? Is that something that we could do moving forward? I don't know. I don't even know who I'm asking that question to. But
I want to ask a similar question, Councillor Goyda. Could we pen a sternly worded letter that to Cargill asking them to put into place a employee, or if I don't know if they're subcontractor policy, where they direct their employees not to travel down Watson Road? Is that an option, Mr. Swendinger?
Yes, it is. We can't obligate them or force them to do that, but we could, as you said, put a strongly worded letter to them indicating what the concerns and the implications are, and request them to do that. And I like Councillor Balmer's suggestion that we give them the opportunity to help compensate the additional costs that we had incurred on an ongoing basis there.
So I'm not familiar with what transpired there, but it sounds like the transport truck got stuck and then our plow truck got blocked. And then did our staff have to facilitate getting that truck out of the ditch, or what transpired?
Basically, we had to bring our 1-ton plow out, take it off its route to sand around our plow truck. I will admit that we did not give much consideration to the illegal driver. We got our truck moving, and eventually that driver was towed away with the outside assistance. The main concern here is that my employee was forced to get out of the vehicle to try and navigate around and come up with a plan to get around the stuck truck. And being on that hill in the middle of a snowstorm, I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. So that's the grave concern here of his employees having to get out of their vehicle.
Yeah.
That and emergency access as well. If you have an emergency call at that time and emergency services need to respond and there's a truck that shouldn't be there stuck on a hill, that creates some obvious problems as well.
Well, we have maintenance standards to maintain, and then now that road's not getting plowed, and it just snowballs to a much larger problem. Where was I? I think it was Councillor Goida. Did you have further comments, Councillor Goida?
No.
Councillor Spools?
Yes, I agree with the suitably worded letter to the CAO of Cargill and expressing this, and also I would be throwing in the fact that with the road being deteriorated by truck traffic, we will be expecting you to pay for any repairs associated with or the maintenance of the road.
Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. I'm just looking at where Cargill's located, and I'm not sure why a truck would choose to go down that road anyway. I'm wondering how best, or if there's a way to encourage, if the 401s where they're coming from, and I don't know where, but would make most sense to be going straight up Guelph line, left on 7, and left to the Cargill plant there. So I'm wondering if through Halton or something we can be encouraging signage or asking for, I don't know. I'm not clear where they're coming from. Are they coming off of Guelph line and going north, or are they coming through Aberfoyle going north?
Yeah, you're right. It's interesting why they're deciding to go up Watson unless they're heading to the London area or Hamilton and returning from that area, because it would make more sense to go up Guelph line across 7. Anyways,
Yeah.
I think the letter will.
Letter's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a resolution for that, Ms. White Fox?
Yes, that council receives the verbal update regarding transport truck traffic on Watson Road, and that council directs staff to contact Cargill Guelph location regarding their trucks not obeying the no heavy truck signs on Watson Road and highlighting the safety and financial consequences.
Before you're gonna move for that, Councillor Goida, since you live in the area, is there any other businesses that are, offenders that stick out in your mind?
Not that I can tell. I mean, I do see trucks more. I'm seeing more and more trucks all the time coming north on Watson towards the intersection at Arco, and at significant speeds as well. And then they're slamming on their brakes to stop at the 408 intersection. But those trucks are generally not marked with any specific, I can't identify where they're coming from or where they're going to.
How about you, Mr. Fowler? Have any of your employees mentioned habitual offenders that we would also want to circulate this letter to?
I don't really have any proof of any other really offenders. Fortunately, we have experienced some trucks from the wet dry facility at the city of Guelph. Again, I've witnessed some contractors actually follow the proper truck route, turn right onto Arkle Road and then head to Victoria and then out Clare. Majority of traffic that seems to be offenders they will use the Watson Hill to access 34 to head east. So that seems to be I guess, to whether to access Guelph line from 34 and then to the 401. Again, it's very sporadic at times. But that seems to be the common traveled route for these truck drivers.
Okay. All right, so we had the resolution read. Can I get a mover for that, please? Councilor Swillis, seconder. Councilor Bailey,
Sure.
all in favor? Councilor Balmer?
Yes, just one question. Is it sufficiently worded that to indicate that we would like to make the offer available for them to make at least a direct compensation for the costs that were incurred that night, in addition to any future costs?
Yes, we will include that.
Thank you. And just to the question that was raised about why they may be coming down this far, to be fair to the people, that if a truck chooses not to turn onto Stone Road and comes further down on Watson, it's not easy to make that corner with a 53-foot trailer in Arkle. I don't, it's almost impossible to make that turn, especially if there's any cars going eastbound on Arkle Road. So I do have some empathy that if they venture south of Stone, they pretty much have no choice but to carry on all the way to 34 on Watson. So, yeah, thank you. I'm in favor.
Councilor Goya?
In favor.
Councilor Swillis?
In favor.
And Councilor Bailey?
In favor.
All right. Any announcements? Confirmatory bylaw.
That the following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2022-011 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of the Township of Puslinch. This meeting held on the 2nd day of March 2022.
You, can I get a mover, please?
I'll move.
Swillis, seconded by Councilor Balmer. All in favor? Councilor Balmer?
In favor.
Councilor Goya?
In favor.
Councilor Swillis?
In favor.
And Councilor Bailey?
In favor.
I believe that brings us to adjournment.
The council hereby adjourns at 12:06 p.m.
It's a record. I got a mover for that. Councilor Goya, seconded by Councilor Swillis. All in favor? Councilor Balmer?
You're welcome. I mean, in favor.
Yeah. Councilor Goya?
In favor.
Councilor Sapoulis?
In favor.
Councilor Bailey?
Before we do that, I think we need to thank the Optimist for a great family day. There seemed to be a lot of people out and the skating was great and the weather was great. And thanks to that group for that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had to work that day. So my family had a wonderful time there. I believe they got there at 1 and didn't leave until dark. Was that your fault, Councilor Bailey? I don't know. But
Kids got
yeah,
lots of
that's the feedback I received. They had a wonderful time. So we really appreciate the Optimists for putting that on again. And hey, are we going to be allowed to drive the Bombardier snow scoot thing on the soccer field? Might have had a conflict of interest in passing that. So that was always a treat to go for a ride now. I really appreciate your family donating that in years past. I understand maybe COVID prohibited this year, or maybe the fact he didn't want his Bombardier ruined, but historically it's been awesome for the kids. We've appreciated it, Jessica. Right.
Thank you. I will pass that along. Thank you.
All right, well, Matthew, we can go put some taps in some trees, I guess. All right, everybody enjoy your day. I think we got that passed. Do we not?
Sure.
Just White Fox?
Yep, we're all good. Thanks.
Okay. All
Thanks,
right, everybody.
everyone.
Take care.
Have a good one.